What's going on? Hello? I'm here. Hopefully you're here. If you're not here live, then you might be here after the fact at some point in the future. But welcome to this video, to this recording, this broadcast. I'm Nick, creator of HEYS Reviews, and on this channel we do book reviews. But I'm trying something a little bit different today. I'm branching out into the world of live streaming, and I've got a bit of a show prepared, and I'm hoping that I can spread some information, some wisdom, provide some value, and make your lives a little bit better. Lord knows at these times we are bombarded with nonsense and stupid BS from all angles through all the telescreens and black mirrors and crazy devices and things that are used against us, given to us as conveniences, things that make your life better. Oh, won't things be so much easier and more wonderful if you have just this little thing? Just give up some of your information. Just give up a little bit of your privacy. Tiptoe, until suddenly we're living in 1984. That is what's happening. That is what's going on around us. Some people are completely unaware and oblivious. They didn't read the book at school, I guess, or they just think it's fiction, and they genuinely believe that things are on a upward and positive trajectory. They're not, especially for us living in England, especially for us living in some other developed nations, America, Canada, these kind of places. We're in a really perilous situation. I don't want to be spreading fear or making people scared or worried or anything. I want to calmly, coolly, and with some confidence take a rational and open and honest look at where we're at, and then talk about some solutions. So that's the plan for this show today. I've got some articles I want to look at. Then I want to talk about some solutions. So let's get right into it without any further ado. So let me click this thing here. Boom. And hopefully you can see Off Guardian. So first thing I wanted to highlight is this fantastic website, Off Guardian. It's one of my favorites. And here you can see I've typed in a search for free speech. And that's come up with 704 search results. So if you are unaware that free speech is under attack, if you maybe think that's a good thing, and you want to sort of steelman your position by understanding the position of people who disagree that that's a good thing, this is a really good place to come. And just click through some of these articles, have a look at them. I'm not sure what's going on with that top bar thingy there, but yeah. I just wanted to highlight that up front. You will actually gain more value and learn more and have a better insight into things if you just stop watching this and go here right now and start reading these articles. And so, yeah, hopefully you'll take me up on that challenge, or maybe just bookmark this and save it for later. All right, let's move on, hopefully. There we go. So the first article that I've got for us today is the Mail Online. So regardless of what you think about the Mail Online, it's apparently the most, if not one of the most read websites on the internet. People are from all over the world are coming here to get their news, their information, and so it's worth keeping an eye out on the message that's being broadcast via this massive platform. Even if you don't read it yourself, even if you are you have your sources and the places you trust and you want to get information, you still need to know what the places you don't trust are putting out, because otherwise you're not looking at it in a fair and balanced way, right? So this article, the Mail Online, is saying Furious Woke Council flushes the word mothers from its guidance on new and expectant parents. So this is all to do with censorship and all to do with words, which are sounds that we make with our mouths, nothing more. Well, a lot more, but I mean, when you really boil it down, you're making sounds with your mouth. That's what you're doing. And they're flushing the word mothers, and presumably that means flushing it down the toilet. I can't think of any positive connotation with the word flush. I mean, it's always to do with getting rid of things, usually waste, things that are unsightly or a bit smelly or stuff a bit icky. You might want to flush it down the toilet, and that's what they're doing with this word, mothers. Now, I don't know about you, but I respect mothers, and I love them, and I love mine, and I have huge love in my heart for any woman on the face of the planet who is willing to take on this role. And I think it's one of the most important roles that women can do. And we should protect it, and we should really rally around loving and supporting all mothers, everywhere. I think you're a moron if you disagree with me on that. But councils in England are flushing the word mothers from their guidance. So let's have a look at this. The council was accused of writing out women today for purging the word mother from its pregnancy and maternity leave policy to be more inclusive. So, let's say half the population are women, which means half the population are going to become mothers or have the option to become mothers. And in order to be inclusive, we're excluding half the population. Makes sense, doesn't it? The document from Somerset Council has replaced the phrase new and expectant mothers with new and expectant parents. Cool. While it says the word parent 16 times, it does not mention mother at all in the new policy that they've published. So that's interesting, right? They're kind of removing the masculine and the feminine from our language. Claire Lonergan from the Women's Rights Network campaign group told Mail Online, replacing the word mother with parent is not neutral. It changes the scope of the policy to include men. Okay, so men can be mothers. This is what we're being told, or at least it's what is being implied by this change. But men, whether new parents or not, will never need the place for pregnant and breastfeeding parents to rest. It is not inclusive to remove the words mother and woman from a policy that relates entirely to pregnancy, breastfeeding, and the challenges that new and expectant mothers face. It writes women out of our own life experiences. Exactly. That point nails it on the head. Women are being kind of sort of de-womanized. They're having their status as mothers and wives and sisters and daughters. They're under attack, and this attack is a kind of shaping and shifting of the language and what is and is not acceptable to say, and what views are and are not acceptable to hold. It's very insidious. It is one of the kind of things that falls under the banner of the road to hell being paved with good intentions. The people pushing this think they're doing a good thing. They think they have the moral right to go ahead with this because they think it's the good thing to do, and it comes from a place of love, and they think they're being inclusive. What is the actual result? So they talk a little bit about this in this article. The move to gender neutral language in our policies highlights our commitment to inclusivity. We've already talked about that word, inclusivity. They're excluding half the population in order to be inclusive. NHS protocols told maternity ward staff that using the traditional terms may amount to misgendering a trans man or non-binary person and damage their mental health. I highlighted this quote because they don't seem to be worried about damaging the mental health of all the women out there who wish to be recognized and known as mothers, who take on that identity, who define themselves as a mother. Don't worry about their mental health, but this tiny minority of people who are sort of straddling that line and making that crossover and transforming themselves into something else, we got to worry about their mental health. And they've got it hard, but at the minute we've all got it hard. And ostracizing and quietly removing half the populations, the language we use to describe them is not making things better. You're actually encouraging more mental health issues with a larger group of people by doing that for the sake of the protection of a very small group of people. Okay, what else we got? Hospitals are also increasingly using the term birthing people instead of women in signs and documents to be more inclusive. So you're a birthing person. I don't know if they're going to start referring to, nipple feeders. That might be one that comes in the future, but it's all ridiculous and it's all stupid. A birthing person should be treated as a pregnant individual, and their pregnancy and birth planning should be individualized to birthing people and their families. It sounds like Kafka-esque silliness. It's kind of hard to believe that this is actually happening and this is what's going on, but there's the article, and it gives you a sense of kind of what I'm trying to highlight and talk about on this channel, which is we need to preserve information, the ability to talk about it, the ability to analyze it, and the facts as they are pertaining to reality and what has happened in the past, what which informs where we are now, which we need to understand if we want to have an impact and an influence on where things are going in the future. That's why I advocate books and reading from books and buying them and building your own library. Books are the best store of facts, and they're solid and they can't be edited after the fact. You know, articles, they get published and then they get changed and then they get kind of memory hold even. And that's true of all digital things in the digital space. The digital space is kind of ephemeral, constantly shifting, constantly moving. We can't rely on it. So yeah, get the books. What's next? I think I just pressed the wrong button there. I just went to the bottom instead of next. All right. Macron rejects gender inclusive writing to protect the French language. Excuse me a minute. I'm going to cough. I've been talking too fast. So I can't read this article because I refuse to pay for the Telegraph, and I haven't yet set up my paywall skirting abilities. But I just wanted to point out that, you know, the French language, I learned French in secondary school for a little while, and it's a gendered language. There's masculine and there's feminine baked into the way people describe everyday objects. You would have the word for one, I think, is un, you know, if you want to say a. But if for a masculine object, the word is spelled un, and for a feminine object, the word is spelled une. I believe that's correct. And so what Macron's saying here is that if we start neutralizing all the language of any references to gender, such as we saw in the previous article about the word mother, well, it's going to change the very fabric of the French language itself. It's going to morph it into something else. And, you know, language is extremely important. Our identities, the way we think. We think with words. Words are dictated by the grammatical conventions and the vocabulary of our language. In many cases, if we don't have a word for a thing, then we can't talk about it or think about it. So language and psychology and your ability to think and rationalize and act in the world, very closely tied. So this is why these issues are so important, and why it's tantamount to mind control, influencing and trying to control the language you can and cannot use. So it's good to see a bit of pushback there, regardless of what you think of Macron. I personally think he's a maniac, but at least he's trying to protect and taking a stance on the right side of things for this issue. So that's good to see. All right. So another one from the Mail Online. The woke campaigners are authoritarians using hate speech laws to stifle free speech, a report warns. Now, you've always got to take these reports with a pinch of salt, because as we'll see later in this article, you got to know where these reports come from, who's writing them, before you can kind of take what they say at face value. But in this article, we're learning a report from a think tank said elements of the left have successfully weaponized concepts such as hate speech to silence their political opponents. So it's a report from a think tank. What is a think tank? Well, it's kind of like a water tank, but instead of being full of water, it's full of think. I'm being facetious, but yeah, what is a think tank? Tends to be a well-funded group whose role is to produce research and reports in order to influence things, academics or politicians or business people, and so on. The key question here is who funds the think tank, because whoever provides the money is going to get their preferences respected, and they're going to influence the output of the think tank. You know, if you know where your bread's buttered, you're going to keep things sweet for that relationship to continue, because you've got bills to pay, and you've got probably debts and mortgages and holidays and maybe children and hobbies, whatever. You need to keep the money coming in. So if somebody says, we want you to research XYZ in order to show ABC, and we'll give you 100,000, sometimes millions of pounds of funding, you're going to say, yes, boss. Yes, please, thank you very much. Put that money in our bank account. We'll get our research done and sent right out. So you got to be skeptical of think tanks, but we're going to learn in a minute what this think tank is, but they're talking about groups such as Black Lives Matter and Extinction Rebellion. Black Lives Matter, extremely shady group. They've the founders and the owners have embezzled massive amounts of money. That's not hard to find. That's very well documented through mainstream media sources. Extinction Rebellion, again, hard to see how they are not a government or intelligence services controlled group. How are they allowed to go on doing what they do? They're not achieving anything. They're really upsetting a lot of people. They're bugging people. You can almost it feels to me like Extinction Rebellion are there. It's a problem that's being allowed to happen in order to get a reaction from the public. And the reaction is going to be, we need to stop people like this, gluing themselves to trains and clogging up the motorways and defacing important works of art and historical monuments, etc. We need more government control to stop these people because they're making a mess and we don't like them. And then the government are like, oh, we'll see. Yeah, we could sort that out for you. And then before you know it, all protests are banned. All group, getting together in groups larger than 4 is going to be banned. And so it's a problem reaction solution, I think, with Extinction Rebellion, because I don't see what they're achieving. I really don't. I don't think they've won anybody to their cause. I don't think they've made any allies throughout all their efforts. They just seem to be well-funded morons who get the spotlight shone on them in order to elicit a certain reaction from, hardworking, tax-paying, let's say, regular people. So this think tank is doing some work, and let's have a look. The report by the Institute of Economic Affairs added that hate speech laws were applied by police in a partial and inconsistent way. And it should be impartial and consistent, right? So partial and inconsistency is absolutely the case, absolutely what's happening. And so they're right on the money there. It said that when someone who is not white makes what seems like a racist remark, it's regarded as a form of cultural resistance and celebrated rather than as a crime. This is absolutely true. You can get online, you can bash white people and slander them and slag them off and call for their death and really say some horrific things about white guilt, white privilege, all day long. And you'll probably be boosted by the algorithm, and you'll probably be encouraged and rewarded with massive amounts of subscribers and followers and all that, likes, thumbs up, ticks, shares, retweets, whatever the thing is, whatever the online currency in the ghettos is these days. Flip it over and do that same kind of rhetoric, but against non-white people, and you'll be shut down very quickly. You'll have organizations coming after you, and it's very strange. My way of figuring out this, of navigating this kind of landscape, is always to flip it, right? So let's say you live on an alien planet and you've got Purple History Month, Purple People History Month. And Purple People History Month is celebrated every year, and it trickles down to us through our institutions and our corporate overlords send it to our inboxes on a daily basis, and it's to celebrate the history of the purple people. And then a group of people get together, a group of green people, and they say, we want Green History Month. And they're like, no, you can't do that. You can't have Green History Month. That's racist because you're excluding the purple people. You see? So if it doesn't work for one group of colored people, it doesn't work for the other group of colored people. That's my point, is just replace any color with the other color and see if it changes things. And if you feel like, it makes me a bit uncomfortable to have color X in that place, but it seems perfectly wonderful and fantastic and empowering and something to be celebrated to have color Y in that event, then you've got a bit of a illogical cognitive dissonance and a contradiction that you need to examine and iron out. And I'm actually going to give you something later in this video about ironing out contradictions and identifying these kind of things so you can think more clearly about things, but that's for later, so please stick around. So this is the Institute of Economic Affairs. In their report, they're saying that these groups, mainly authoritarian leftists, they see censorship as a tool to transfer power between social groups. They threaten any open society. Being accused of hate speech is the contemporary equivalent of being charged with blasphemy or seditious libel. So absolutely true, totally on the money. Censorship is a tool, and it does transfer power between social groups because it prevents you pointing out things that are obviously happening and getting to the root cause of who's doing what to whom for what reasons, because it makes certain topics and discussions uncomfortable, so people avoid them, and instead they talk about stupid BS. Which, if I had to boil down my efforts here online, it's to combat the constant torrent and tsunami of stupid BS that we are assaulted with. I'm trying to put a signal out here in amongst the noise, but it's absolutely on the money. It transfers power because it creates friction, and it makes one group hate another group, and it fosters this sense of righteousness and moral superiority. And this goes back to our road to hell being paved with good intentions. It's people who think they're doing the right thing and the good thing mistakenly, which brings about hell on earth, right? So we got to watch for that and be extremely vigilant and cautious. And that's why we need to be logical and non-contradictory in our thinking. And we need to have a worldview and an understanding of reality that is also non-contradictory. And this stuff, this kind of hate speech and control of language really retards that effort. And by retard, I mean slows down. It slows down that effort to understand reality in a non-contradictory, lucid way, right? What else we got here? So the author, Mark Denning of the IEA, said, British democracy faces an existential threat from those seeking to silence debate. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. When debate is silenced, it just prevents people making sense of things, which prevents people figuring out what's going on in order to take control of it to make better things happen, right? When you are told you can't ask that question, or just that's just the way it is. Think of a child, right? Children, they ask loads of questions, and why is it like that, and why? And at some point, parents just go, because it is, or because I said so. And right there, you're putting this kind of block into that child to prevent them asking those questions and finding out what's going on. It's a similar kind of thing. And then they're going to be like, they're going to start thinking, this adult is hiding things from me, and they won't explain things to me. And then they learn that it's okay to hide things and not explain things from other people, and they start doing it to other people, and it kind of perpetuates like that. So you need this culture that is open, that is honest, that is transparent, that is willing to have difficult conversations and willing to change, and everybody's willing to change their position according to what the arguments and the debate and the logic and the facts show, right? And so without that debate, democracy faces an existential threat. And I think this is a really good point. Next bit, the government had previously outlined plans to bolster free speech in a new Bill of Rights, but it was dropped in June. I didn't even know about this until I read this article. So this was, now it's it's November the 11th, 2023. So back in June, the government was going to bolster free speech and protect it and empower it, and then they dropped it. They probably, I don't know, had a war to pay attention to or something. The legislation would have made free speech a trump card over other rights, barring the creation of European-style privacy laws through the back door. When the bill was dropped by Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's government, former Justice Secretary Dominic Raab, who drew up the proposals, said it was a disappointing decision, which would mean all the wrong people will celebrate. So if you are celebrating the fact that free speech is not being bolstered, then you're the wrong person, according to Dominic Raab. I'm not sure how long that vowel sound in his last name is there. Raab. Anyway, so this is the IEA. This is the report itself, referenced in the previous article. Dictating words, the culture, control left, and the war against free speech. This came out on the 31st of October, so it's very brand new, and it's long. boom, it just goes on and on and on. So this is a deep dive, a deep read, and you might feel like it's a lot of nonsense, right wing, but you haven't read it, right? So read it first, then judge and make your decision on it. But it goes on forever. I'm not going to go too far into it, apart from just to highlight some of the summary points at the top. The logic at the heart of CCL thinking is the postmodernist derived idea that language can constitute a form of coercive power. Society is thought to be socially constructed by dominant ideas. These sustain, it is claimed, existing hierarchies and marginalize a variety of identity groups. To sustain this irrational interpretation of language, the CCL has greatly extended the boundaries of what constitutes harm to include many forms of speech, hence the advent of the safe space. Hate speech is the key concept that the CCL deploys to justify cancelling adherence to positions judged to be transgressive and to impose greater state regulation of peaceful expression. That's key. That is absolutely key. State regulation of peaceful expression. So there's a little argument that, you shouldn't yell fire in a crowded theater because it's going to cause panic. People will stampede and you'll harm and in the panic, harm is likely to ensue. You shouldn't encourage other people to murder and violently attack other people unless they're white, in which case that's not too bad. That seems to be accepted by the algorithms. But obviously it's not acceptable. It's stupid. You shouldn't be doing that. It's a ridiculous thing to use your voice and your words to call for harm and hate and violence. It should go without saying. But the problem is that they're talking about in this report is that there's going to be greater regulation of peaceful expression, right? So let's say, for example, you are a midwife and you work with birthing people. And one of those birthing people, and you call one of those birthing people like, hey, congratulations on becoming a mother. And they say, no, how dare you call me a mother? I am not a mother. I'm offended by you calling me a mother. And now I'm going to ruin your career and complain about you. And then this kind of thing actually happens. I would say that's a peaceful expression. But the state regulation, the state getting involved in punishing people who do that kind of thing, that's not a good thing. That's ridiculous. People need to grow up and be more mature, and if somebody calls you a mother and you don't like being called a mother, just swallow it, get on with your life. Don't turn it into an issue. You don't get to police the words and the things everybody else says around you. It's not about, don't be solipsist in that sense. The world doesn't revolve around you and have to fit itself to your preferences and your tastes, right? There's an established way of doing things that promotes cohesion and peaceful exchange between people, and you got to take part in that game, and you've got to accept that some people are going to use words, again, they're going to make sounds with their mouth, and if you don't have yourself under control to the point where you can hear that and just water off a duck's back I just made a verb out of the phrase water off a duck's back, but let it pass over you and roll off your back in the way that ducks do that with water, then you're the problem, not the person who didn't use the exact word that you want to compel them to use. And just because the government's stepping in and going, yes, we will compel people to use certain words, doesn't mean you're in the right? And this is the road to hell with good intentions thing again. So the regulation of peaceful expression, it always goes into horrific places of pain and suffering when that starts happening. And it has happened throughout history. And if you're not aware of it, then you need to become more historically literate. And you need to watch more of my videos, because that's the kind of thing I talk about. Next point, the ill-defined nature of what constitutes hate speech represents a serious threat to our capacity to engage in open democratic debate. I don't think you need the word democratic there, but open debate. Yeah. You need to be able to talk about stuff and hold your position and respect other people's position and that they're different to yours, and be at peace with that, and still love them and still be kind to them and still want the best for them, even though they have a different opinion than you, right?
But this is all being undermined and taken away from us. It also undermines the principle that the law should be sufficiently clear for citizens to understand whether their behavior is lawful or not. And attempts to reverse the current authoritarian tide should not only be based on consequentialist arguments, but also upon a restatement of freedom of speech as a natural right. Yeah, so check that out. Go and look it up. I'll probably put the link in the box under the video. That is and you can download the PDF and it's free, and you can highlight it just like I have and talk to other people about it. But critical that you're aware of this and you speak out while you still can. What else we got here? Tech bosses have become too powerful in regulating what we say. So this is the standard. This is something that I haven't yet highlighted, but I just wanted to include it in today's show because it's absolutely true. Tech bosses have become too powerful in regulating what we say, and I should have grabbed the books before we started. Maybe I can get them quickly. Here they are. So let's just go back to
this cam for a second. Whoa. Google Archipelago, The Digital Gulag and the Simulation of Freedom by Michael Rectenwald. Very small, easy book, easy to read. You can blast through that quickly. Michael Rectenwald is wonderful. His work is really clear, concise, well referenced, and he does that wonderful thing that some authors do, where he puts the footnotes at the bottom of the page. Holy crap, that's too bright. You can see here, that's a footnote, so you don't have to jump to the back of the book all the time to see what the reference is. That's one. Google Archipelago, and then the other one is this Yasha Levine book, The Secret Military History of the Internet, Surveillance Valley. The internet is a military creation, and it was used to do what it's doing now, which is regulate absolutely everything that goes on in our lives, and to mediate between us, as individual human beings, between us and corporations, between us and the government. If you got a problem with a product, try getting a human being on the phone to resolve it. It's getting harder and harder and harder, and increasingly they're using ChatGPT powered chatbots, which are extremely, it's insulting to have to use these. It's insulting to have to ring up a company and wade through 30 minutes of automated recorded menus, typing in buttons and speaking to a machine. It's degrading, and people could be employed to do those jobs, and people could be doing them really well. People like speaking to other people, right? For the most part. And if you don't, that means you should go out and speak to more people, because you're a bit reclusive and kind of like you need that skill of being able to interact with other human beings. So the internet, the clue's in the name. It's a net, right? It's the World Wide Web. It's a web. It's a net. What do you do with webs and nets? Well, you catch things that you want to eat. You catch things that you want to devour. You go after prey with webs and nets. Yeah? I don't need to say much more about that. This article, which we'll just go back to right here, is tech bosses have become too powerful in regulating what we say. Absolutely. Who are these people? Why have they been given this power? Who's programming the algorithms, which, things get automatically flagged up and deleted now. I've had comments deleted off this platform, and all I did was recommend a book. And, all I did, somebody was talking about a topic. I went on to their webpage, their video, and I was like, hey, are you aware of this book? I think you should be. It's a book that is relevant to the topics you're covering, and I would like to see you read this and talk about it. It's free. You can find it online. And I posted a comment to that, and boom. It got deleted twice, and then I got banned for commenting for 2 days. So that's the world we live in. Again, so it's unfolding rapidly around us. That's why I'm doing this and putting this effort out. So that's another article for your consideration. Mainstream news article there. What is next? When did journalism become a hate crime? This is spiked.
GB News Charlie Peters has been reported to the police for investigating Islamic extremism. Now, we don't even need to go too far into this. What I will say is, again, like we did our thought exercise with the colored people, just imagine if this was Christian extremism. Imagine if somebody was reported to the police for investigating Christian extremism. Does that change how you would feel about the story without reading it? Does that change how you feel about the headline? Do you think that would speak to a different group of people? Would incite a different is designed to incite a different response from a different group of people? It's these kind of thought experiments we need to apply to help us improve our thinking and understanding, and not get sucked into the propaganda and the mind control that a lot of these outlets are designed for. So it's now a hate crime to investigate Islamic extremism. Oh, that's a question. The Lewisham Islamic Centre in London certainly seems to think so. So Charlie Peters, GB News, and regular. So this guy contributes to this website, so it's going to be biased. But he made inquiries about an inflammatory speech that was allegedly given at the mosque. What happened after that? So the footage. So it was. So we have the video. It was live streamed, and it's so that's pretty good evidence to look at. There's a link there if you want to see it. Appears to show the footage appears to show this. The centre's Imam Shakil Beg delivering a sermon on our responsibility towards Gaza and Palestine. So let's move a bit further down. Clearly, there's a legitimate news story here. Not least has the Lewisham Mosque received £540,000 of taxpayers' money between 2015 and 2020. I mean, that's 5 years. That's like 100,000 a year for a mosque, which is a place of worship and it brings the community together. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with the fact that the money's stolen under threat of imprisonment and violence. But for cultural centers and religious centers to bring communities together to worship and to pray, and I don't have a problem with that. But this guy, Begg, has previous. In 2018, he lost a libel action against the BBC after it referred to him as an extremist. A judge ruled that he clearly promotes and encourages violence in support of Islam and espouses a series of extremist Islamic positions. So Peters, our man from Spite, hit back. This is here. He hit back to say that he was not intimidated, and by the smear, adding TikTok to suggest the mosque should hurry up in responding properly to his questions. TikTok, TikTok, TikTok. The words TikTok, and he's not referring to the Chinese social media app that is ruining the minds and lives of all the young people in the Western world. The words TikTok were then seized on by Lewisham Mosque, which accused him of making a threat, as the phrase can be associated with a bomb. We have therefore now reported this as a hate crime. This is so cartoony. This is like Looney Tunes level stuff. Firstly, who uses clocks that actually make a TikTok sound anymore? Everything's digital. Most people have digital stuff. I think most people would probably find a TikTok of a clock annoying. Secondly, if you're making a bomb, are you getting the TikTok clocks now? They're expensive because nobody uses them or wants them. So are you going to use a super cheap little digital timer that is silent and doesn't have any moving parts, or are you going to get an old TikTok clock and build that into your weapon? It's just it's comical. It's very silly. But in conclusion, it shows how our hate crime laws are being weaponized to silence legitimate criticism and shut down debate. Yeah, and all this kind of stuff is there to just inflame, to turn people against each other, to divide and conquer, in other words. All right, what else we got? Boom. All right, so we are now into the solutions part of the video. So let me just click back a second to my other cam so you can see me and my book collection in all its glory. If you are concerned about any of the topics that I've been trying to draw attention to in this video, one thing you can do is have a look in the links beneath this video where I've posted a bunch of
solutions and further avenues for further learning, exploration, and empowering knowledge, getting that empowering knowledge. And one of those things that I wanted to highlight today, one of the links down there, is Richard Grove's Grand Theft World Freedom Vault. So if we just click back over here, so it's the Freedom Vault, and it's free. And what is in the Freedom Vault: means, motive, and opportunity, the who, why, and how. So Richard has spent decades now understanding the who, why, and how of what's going on in the world. So who's doing it? Why are they doing it? How are they doing it? Right? So what does he say? In his own words, I walk you through the problem of tyranny, share primary evidence and root causes, and introduce you to a plethora of solutions through the cornucopia of content in this presentation. He says it best. I'll leave it right there. But what do you get in this Freedom Vault, which again is free? Technically it's not free, right? You gotta give your email address, right? That's it. That's the price you got. That's the price of entry to hours and hours of content that is honestly the best, in my opinion, my humble opinion. There's nobody out there doing work to the level of Richard, with the excellence, with the integrity, and with the attention, the forensic attention to detail when it comes to artifacts, evidence, and continuity from World War One up to the present day. Right? It's incredible big picture knowledge. It is really in depth. So get in there and have a look. But what do you get in this Freedom Vault? You get an Acapulco 2022 presentation. You get the ultimate history lesson with John Taylor Gatto. That alone is worth the price of entry, which is just your email address. That's 5 hours. And John Taylor Gatto was Teacher of the Year in New York. He was world famous. He was flying around the world giving presentations. He was a public school teacher, and he was one of the best that humanity has ever produced. Incredible guy. He's got a lot of books. I've got them on the shelves over there. I will review them one day for you wonderful people. You get a link to Richard's history blueprint brain model. That is his the resource that lays out the map of everything that he's researched, all connected together with links so you can explore it and dive into his brain. Towards a New World Order, George Soros PDF. You get the Global Strategic Trends Summary 2024. It's crazy. It's jam-packed with incredibly useful stuff. Have a look in the link below for that if you are interested. So another thing you get that I think we didn't mention was State of Mind, the Psychology of Control. This is a feature-length 5-hour documentary. It is all about how psychology is used against you and I on a daily basis in order to manipulate us and to control us and to get us to do things we wouldn't normally voluntarily choose to do if we had a full informed consent, right? So that's another thing. 5-hour documentary, boom, right there. You get it for free for your email address. You get Autodidacticism, Richard Grove and James Corbett. That's a 40-minute discussion about learning to learn. The most important skill that exists is learning how to learn. Is there something in life you can't do? You don't know how to make more money. You don't know how to get a better job, how to get a raise, how to start a business. Well, you just need to learn how to learn. Once you have learned how to learn, then you can go and do all that stuff because you know how to learn what you need to learn to do that stuff, right? But the foundational bottom level skill that you need to know is learning how to learn. So that is one thing I wanted to highlight. The second thing I wanted to highlight, this links us back, circling back to the start of the broadcast when we're talking about logic and ironing out contradictions in our worldview. Whoa, look at that. That is some nice graphical, moving picture type stuff, isn't it? The ancient secret to rational thought, what every person ought to know, but has never been taught. Now you can have the benefit of an elite education. So this course is by Tony Myers. He's the co-host of the Grand Theft World podcast, and this is a course in logic, and this is a primer in intellectual self-defense. This is going to teach you how to think clearly, how to analyze information rationally, how to iron out contradictions in your thinking and other people's thinking in order to have those difficult conversations, to reach agreement, and to communicate clearly and effectively so that you can solve problems and move forward and not be stuck in this cycle of like problem, reaction,
reaction solution, of being triggered, of being emotionally manipulated by the dark psychologists of the world. This course is not free, but it is a resource I wanted to highlight. There's a link underneath for anybody who feels like investing in themselves and putting a little money into learning something that is going to empower you and improve your ability to do everything for the rest of your life. It's crazy value. You get 6 lectures, you get 6 Q&A sessions, there's supplemental resources, books and materials for studying logic. You can get on here and learn how to protect your mind. One quote that I thought was absolutely critically important is this one. That doesn't look good. Steal the key language and redefine it, and the people become confused. It's Newspeak from 1984. Are the people confused? Are the people getting having words like mother redefined or scrubbed from the language? As we've seen, yes, they are. John Taylor Gatto, the man, the master, the maverick. What a guy. Alrighty, we have reached the crescendo of today's broadcast. This is another article, again from Off Guardian, my favorite place to get high quality content on the most pressing issues of our day. A little story about Off Guardian. They formed because they were all mainstream journalists who got kicked out of the Guardian newspaper, UK publication. They got kicked out of that for, telling the truth and being good reporters and journalists, which is what happens to truth tellers and good reporters and good journalists. They get kicked out of things like the BBC and Guardian and all the mainstream stuff. So they set up Off Guardian, and this website has really kept me sane over the last 3 years. It has wonderful contributors, and you can support it with a few pounds a month, but it's just excellent stuff. And what I wanted to do for this crescendo final part of the broadcast today is a reading of this article from October the 11th, 2023. Israel-Hamas War, Another Excuse to Shut Down Free Speech by Kit Knightley. As a brand new war narrative unfolds, there's already efforts underway to parlay the conflict into tighter controls on free speech and freedom of expression, both in person and on the internet. The headlines have been filled with nothing but Israel and Hamas since the surprise attack on Saturday, with the predictable back and forth of historical grievances and accusations of racism punctuated by unsubstantiated claims of atrocities. Atrocity propaganda is nothing new. It is the opening salvo of every war as state combatants try to win the public to their side. For example, the totally unsubstantiated claim that Hamas threw 40 Jewish babies out of their cribs and beheaded them, which was doing the rounds yesterday. As far as atrocity propaganda goes, the claim is startling in its unoriginality. And there's a link there to Naira, and you can check out that story if you haven't heard of it. But a proven piece of atrocity propaganda. Continuing with the article. There's a lot of that right now. Lurid claims of graphic and pointless violence directed against the innocent, most of which survives just long enough to cause some outrage before being debunked or walked back. Part of that is the general fog of war, heightened by the advent of social media. When a lot of people can talk, a lot more is said, good and bad. But there's another interpretation, that fake war stories are being intentionally seeded onto social media and then debunked to discredit platforms and appear to justify digital censorship. Within the past 24 hours, Reuters, NBC, Yahoo News, The Guardian, and the AP have run stories criticizing the proliferation of fake war news on social media. Al Jazeera joined in too. Almost all of those accusations have been directed solely at Twitter, increasingly the media's anti-free speech straw man. Governments have not been quiet on the issue either, with the European Union reportedly warning Elon Musk there would be penalties for the spread of war-related misinformation on his platform. It's not just misinformation either, but also hate. In an unusually subtle headline, NBC News warns of the increasingly fraught nature of online speech. USA Today is more on the nose, claiming online hate is surging. Oh, and there are the unregulated sites to worry about, where terrorists allegedly upload violent videos. At least, so the New York Times says. Hamas sees violent videos on sites with little moderation. It's not hard to see where this leads. And while misinformation is used to justify social media censorship, safety is used to justify shutting down freedom of assembly. In the UK and US, pro-Palestinian rallies were met with calls for the police to get involved, citing laws that outlaw the public support of listed terrorist organisations. UK Home Secretary Suella Braverman has told the police that waving a Palestinian flag could be considered a crime. Metropolitan police are engaging in reassurance patrols. In France, the police are already more directly involved, shutting down a pro-Palestine demonstration, and people applauded. Many of them, the same voices who railed against tyranny in defending the Canadian truckers or anti-lockdown protests. It's a disheartening thing to see. In short, the war is 4 days old and is already being used to suppress dissent on the streets and argue against free speech on the internet. However the war narrative evolves over there, over here, it's just more of the same. And you can support Off Guardian. They've got a goal for each month, how much they can raise. Just excellent work. Very
thought-provoking, very up-to-date, good analysis. And that is pretty much it from me for this broadcast today.